If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So if they need something, they know I'm working on it, right?
Welcome to Trial to Triumph, hosted by Caleb Johnson, the show about leaning into life's constant testing on your way to realizing your biggest blessings.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Caleb Johnson, host of From Trial to Triumph. This is a show where we talk about learning lessons and trials that people have gone through and have come out triumphant and have really learned through those experiences. And today I'm really excited about our guest. We have Rod Valdez. Rod is a syndicator, and he is still has a W-2 job and is the number one salesman in his company while buying large multifamily assets. So really excited to have him on the show today. Rod, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Caleb. I appreciate the invite and just looking forward to being able to share any insight I can give to someone to probably help them along their path as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're really excited to have you. Can you give our listeners just a quick background about where you started, your career and how that related to business?
Yeah, so I have an engineering background. Went to school, the University of Illinois in Champaign. Came from Illinois to California. Worked with an engineering firm for a few years, and honestly, it was a spot where climbing the corporate ladder wasn't in my, how do I put it, in my vision, because there was a guy that was playing solitaire next to me, right? Uh, 10 years more, 10, 15 years more experience than I was, making more money. And this guy's playing solitaire while I'm working my butt off. And I sat there, I'm like, you know what, this is not what I want to do. It's not fair. Number one, my work ethic is pretty high, and for him to get paid more than me, I didn't like. So I didn't want to climb that corporate ladder, and I figured I would try to find something that I could do that if I put in the work, I will get compensated for, and if I slack, then it's 100% on me. So I'm a big believer of reaping and sowing. So that transitioned me from sitting in a cubicle as an engineer to joining on the sales side of things. So um, again, because I do have at least I feel I have a good work ethic. I've been able to reap what I've sown, and I work hard at what I do.
Okay. I like to talk about just that reap what you sow, because a lot of who we are stems from how we've been raised. So can you talk a little bit about how you got that mentality? Was it a drill instructor or father? Where'd you get that from?
Yeah, I think it comes from my upbringing. My parents came from the Philippines to the United States, and I remember my dad telling me just all the trials and tribulations he had, and multiple tries to come from the Philippines to the United States to have a better life for himself, ultimately for his kids, and coming from not a whole lot, and given the opportunity that's presented in front of you, I think he has built that inside of myself and my siblings to work hard for what we want and what we can achieve, and knowing that anything's possible. Take personal responsibility and go after it, right?
hmm Yeah, my dad was actually, when my parents divorced, my dad was homeless for like, gosh, a couple months, but yeah, just listening to the stories of what he had to go through, I won't get into it, but it's just whenever you have a harder upbringing. I didn't have a hard upbringing, but my parents have experienced something like that, and I think it's honestly a blessing, to have that, and you do have that work ethic and almost that chip on your shoulder where you really want to, like you said, reap what you sow, and otherwise, what's the point to what we're doing if you aren't going to really work hard at it? That's great.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, in addition to that, you're given certain, God-given abilities. and talents that, you can use, right? They're not given to you for, without a reason. So, I mean, if an opportunity presents itself, then take advantage the best way that you can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in business, with those, let's stick with those God-given abilities. What are some of the big abilities that you see in business that if someone has them, they can really leverage those to be successful in, if it's sales or even if it's real estate or something else like that?
I guess speaking from my own personal standpoint, in anything, and life is kind of sales, right? Whether you're trying to sell someone to go out with you, or marry you, or a job, or whatever, it is sales. But ultimately, it does come down to whether or not someone knows you well enough to trust you. And I think, as far as skills, for me anyways, integrity is a big thing, right? If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to get something done. If I'm not going to lie, right? And I think just, I don't know, I guess a lot of people will say things and do another. And so I think it really means a lot to me when I say something that, I'll stand behind it. I'm not just going to say something and not prove it, or not stand behind what I say. So my word and my integrity are big for me, and I think that's helped me become successful in the areas of my life
Mm-hmm.
that I have, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I like to, I've talking to a couple people on the show that have a W-2 job. Um, and as a salesperson, it might not be a W-2, more like a 1099. But still, they a lot of them have jobs and they pursue this as well. And I know you're a busy guy. You've got a couple deals in the pipeline currently, and how do you? And I know you have a large family as well. So how do you
Yeah.
balance that work life and real estate balance?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you said, I do have a large family. I am married with four kids ranging from 7 to 21. So I've got, is it a second grader now? And then one in college. So, you know, and then high schooler in between, and a preteen. So, I get all the dynamics of kids growing and figuring things out. So there's that. But I am 100% commissioned in my sales job. So if I don't perform, then again, that's on me. Um, but then trying to balance real estate with it, with multiple deals, it really comes down to blocking off the time. If I make something a priority, then I'm going to schedule it in. If I don't schedule it in, then a lot of times it just doesn't happen. I've got reminders on my phone that pop up and say, "Hey, go look into getting new tires for your daughter's car," right? And that could be on my to-do list, but at least it's a reminder that pops up and says, "Hey, you set aside the time to do this and get it done." So for me, having the engineering mentality, in some cases, a lot of the tasks, are there that I can accomplish. So I create task lists, block off times, and then if I can't fit it in, or it's not a priority, then it either doesn't go on the list, or I just don't get to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's I use that same strategy, time blocking, because if you can focus, 90 minutes or 120 minutes on one thing, and phones, on do not disturb, and you can really get work done, and that's when you can start seeing your business progress. And I learned that from another mentor of mine, so I can definitely agree with that. Now, on the sales side, you're the number one sales person in your company, and that's got to come with some serious habits. Some obviously you're good at what you do, but what are some habits that you've learned from your sales career that have really propelled that to the next level?
I think again, it is integrity, right? If I'm going to tell someone, "Hey, I know the answer, or I'll find the answer for you," right? So I think people know that, if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So if they need something, they know I'm working on it, right? It's not that I'm just giving you, you know, a line or whatever. So I try to stick to my word. I try to, um, you know, get to things that are important to other people. I can see things from their perspective and know that it's not just, a job or a task or whatever. I try to put myself in that person's shoes and know, what they're up against and maybe the pressures that they have. So habits are, you know, being responsive, being available, and then just sticking to what I say. I think a lot of that has helped along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, the integrity is a big piece of that, and I, I, I'm trying to think if there's a way that we could measure integrity. Right? There's usually not, and again, that usually comes from people's upbringing. But yeah, that integrity piece, you can't, especially whenever you're partnering with, a syndication group where maybe you say I'm going to raise $500,000, then it's good to know that you do get that done, and just having that mentality to shift into business as well is obviously very important, and that's what you do.
Yeah, I heard a quote one time, and I was trying to remember it as you were talking. And I think I got it, but now I'm like, do I really have it? Um, I heard it say that people of integrity expect to be believed, and when they're not, they let time prove them right. And so, if you live your life with integrity, you just have that expectation that, you're believable, right? And when people don't believe you, time will prove that you actually are. So you live your life as if, you're gonna stand up for what you say, and you just let time prove it. You don't have to prove it to anybody else other than doing what you should do or what you believe is right.
And what was that? This cut out just for a second. What was that quote? It cut out right when you started saying the quote, and I was so on my seat waiting for it. What was that?
It was, people of integrity expect to be believed, and when they're not, they let time prove them right.
Mm, yeah, that's spot on because that's who you are, right? It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter who sees you or anything like that, and you're not proving it to somebody else to say, "Hey, look at me." It's just the person that you are, and you hold yourself to that level of, a value, right? So let's talk a little bit about the real estate side of things. So what do you got going on there? And yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. So I primarily focus on the Phoenix market for multifamily syndications. We've closed one recently in March. We're currently near the tail end of closing a 95 unit also in Phoenix, raising capital. And for what it's worth, if you have accredited investors, we're looking for more. Um, that's for accredited investors only. I also have another deal that we are simultaneously raising capital for, outside of Atlanta.
All right. So Rod, you're obviously in multiple markets in the syndication business, all over the US. What made you get started in syndicating properties?
Yeah, so I think I had mentioned, I learned early about leveraging time and money. Um, and so to kind of keep it short, because of my sales job, I had extra funds that I would leverage into creating passive income. Um, so I started doing private money lending to developers, house flippers, things like that. Eventually evolving into buying some small single family rentals, to leverage money, right? Um, and then at one point, I came across a syndicator that would send me a deal that I invested in, and I started sharing it with other people, and he kept sending me more deals, and I was sharing it with more people. And then I just came to the realization that, you know what, why can't I just put these deals together myself? So then I looked into how to figure out how to do that. I joined a program, got a coach, and then started putting together my own deals. So I'm trying to how to find deals, how to underwrite deals, how to raise capital for deals, all of it, and just started sharing it with other people as I continue to grow. So
Hmm. So how there's so many people that get stuck in that analysis paralysis stage, right? So how do you, because it sounds like you just started taking action. So what do you do so that you don't get stuck in that analysis paralysis mode?
um, it's hard because I am an engineer, right? I do have the engineering background, so I will um, have that whatever analysis paralysis, right? Because I'll look at things too closely. But for me, I live my life by faith. And so I knew that this was the next step for me, and the doors started opening. And I just said, you know what, let me figure out and see what's on the other side, right? And so as opportunities came up, I just stepped through and tried to figure out how to make it work. And there's still some things that I will struggle in that I don't necessarily jump both feet into right away. But for real estate, I knew that from some of these prior opportunities and what led me to where I was. For me, it just felt like, all right, this is the next step. Let's go all in and just figure it out. And I heard early on you got to kind of kiss a lot of frogs, right, to find the right one. And so I just kept doing through repetition, learning, figuring things out, just keeping just going after it, and then eventually one broke, right, and then the next one, and then the next one. So
Yeah, keep
that's
on kissing
how.
those frogs.
Yeah, exactly.
um, yeah, that's funny. Well, oh, I had a thought there. It's good that, we can kind of edit this out. Um,
It was the frogs, huh? The
it
frogs
was a,
threw you off.
it threw me off, man. We're gonna title this "Kissing Frogs." Um, okay, so I think it's, yeah, like you say, kissing frogs, and whenever, yeah, sometimes you just have to, you get a feeling, and I live my life by faith as well, and if you don't listen to that, I mean, sometimes you just have to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm just gonna do it, and then you act on that faith. Of course, you don't go into something blind, and sometimes, I mean, rarely, sometimes you just have to go off of that feeling, but most of the time, analyze what the deal is, and sometimes you just get a feeling. It's like, man, I've looked at all this data so many times, and I get this too looking at and underwriting properties. It's like I have looked at this T12, gosh, for 3 hours now. Like, I'm just tired. I've memorized the
Yeah.
numbers. So yeah, I think it's good. You just sometimes have to take that next step and call it what it is. So, well, Rod, I think I got a lot of information out of this episode and really appreciate your time. Now, I want to ask you just three quick questions before we go. And if you can recommend one book to our listeners, what would that be?
Honestly, I'm not that big of a reader, and I'll admit that that's an area I need to improve on. Um, I think a big influential book for me has been, it's an older one. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? It's really just teaching people how to understand um, other people, right? And it's not that you're trying to influence them with specific intentions, but it's really just trying to know how people take and receive information and how to be relatable, right? Because for me, and like most engineers, we don't like talking to people. So it was something that I had to learn to do pretty early on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great classic. Yeah. The If people want to learn more about you and even potentially look at some of those deals you have coming up, where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so I have a really brief website. It's worthyassetsgroup.org. They can email me at rvaldez@worthyassetsgroup.org. Um, Probably pretty simple. I give my phone number out too if that works. It's 909-655-1648. I'm always willing to help people just understand and grow. And, I don't think I know too much, right? So I'm willing to learn from other people as well.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. And if you can give our listeners one final piece of advice, just one actionable thing, what would that be?
Um, take take the first step, right? Whatever it is, take a step forward. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to learn from it, right? It's going to be how to do something better or how not to do something. But take a step forward and just see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even if you learn, even if you fail, you learned, which is a step in that right direction. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Rod,
Yep.
really appreciate your time, brother. It was good to speak to you. And yeah, everyone, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, Caleb. Appreciate it.
It's time to grab your victory. Find us on the web at redseacapitalgroup.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Red Sea Capital Group.